So on to today's putting lesson. What I aim to give you are just some simple, really simple pointers that you can practice at home and that you can take after we're out of lockdown and it's safe to go back out and play on the golf courses. That really practical stuff that you can use straight away to help improve your putting. And much of this has come from the lessons that I've given, but my own personal experiences on the golf course as well. I've quickly put this together so there's no real structure. If any of you have any comments or questions you'd like to ask, please put them in the comments box. My son Billy is on the other end of the camera. He's going to relay those comments to me as much as he can. And hopefully, like I say, I give you some good information. So it's going to be split into two parts. Part number one is going to be about one of the main things that people ask me for when they come for a putting lesson, and one of the things that I notice when I see people play that causes them to have more putts and to really struggle on the greens, and it's pace control. What can you do to help develop your skills for getting the right distance? In the second part of this session, I'm going to talk to you about a phenomenon we call the putting yips. Now, hopefully, many of you watching this will never have had a bout of the yips, but one or two of you maybe are suffering from them when you were last playing, and it's an involuntary action, especially on short putts. And I'm just going to take you through my journey of dealing with the yips, how I overcame them, that you can use as well to then get back enjoying your putting. Because if you've had the yips, it is a soul-destroying thing to the point where you would probably never really want to play golf again, because you just can't get the ball in the hole. So I'm going to cover that. So we're going to go back to topic one, which is pace control. And first of all, my opinion on this is a lot of people, if they're struggling with pace control, it's because of two things. Number one is they overthink it, believe it or not. There's too much going on up here. They're perhaps trying to apply some method of length of back and through swing, where they try and specify, right, for a putt of this length, I've got to take the club back this far and this far through. It doesn't work. In my opinion, it doesn't work because it's too technical. It causes too much tension. For putting and for pace, you've got to let it flow. You've got to go with a bit of instinct. And I believe, very strongly believe, that even a completely new golfer knows how hard to hit the putt. And I'll give you an example. If I was putting to the wall here, I don't know if you can get the wall in, Billy, so people can see how far it is. Now, of course, this isn't a proper green, it's very slow, and I've not had a lot of chance to practice on it, but even still, a complete beginner could see this and go, right, okay, I want this ball just to touch the wall, not hit the wall, just to touch it. What's this like? And I think every single person watching would say, well, that would be too hard, far too hard. What about this? And we know that would be too soft. So the point I'm trying to make here, I know they're extreme examples, is that every golfer I've ever taught, complete beginners, when I'm doing my Love Dot golf classes, ladies coming into these lessons, having never touched a club before, they just know. Why do they know? They know because of all the other skills we have acquired in our lives. Michael Hebron, a PJ Pro from America, huge respect to Michael Hebron. He's an absolute legend, and his knowledge of the game, especially the mind, is phenomenal. And he talks about how there are no new skills for you to learn to be able to play the game of golf. And what he means by that is that, for instance, just mopping the floor allows you to chip. Throwing the ball, so just going back to my idea that how far back and through we swing the club will be able to help us get the pace. If I was throwing a ball to Billy here, I wouldn't think about how far back and through. I'm not going to throw it, Billy, don't worry. He's flinching there behind the camera, you can't see that. I wouldn't think about how far back and how far through I'm going to throw it. My focus is on the target, the person I'm throwing it to, and I would just throw the ball. An idea, if I'm throwing it to land it in the flower bed here, I don't know if you can get that in, Billy. If I'm just going to throw it and land it in the flower bed, the more I think about the mechanics of it, the less accurate I'll be. And some of you might have discovered this when you've scrunched up a piece of paper and you've just thrown it into the bin. How accurate you are, but when you try to do it, when it becomes very trying, the accuracy seems to disappear. Instead, just this task, I take a look and I throw and straight in to the flower bed. So I don't think consciously about how far back and through I'm making the swing. So some exercises for you to do then is this. I've set up here, you may have seen from some videos I did at the start of lockdown, the putting ladder game. I use masking tape on the carpet. Putting on this artificial turf is fine, but it's very slow compared to a green. Out indoors on a carpet, it's even better. But I've just used knives here rather than getting masking tape out. I'm sure you've all got enough knives. And I've created a ladder. And what I'd like you to do when you're putting here is just pick a zone to try and get your ball to finish on. If you've got family, this is a fantastic game to play where in each zone you could have a little treat. For me, it might be a can of Brewdog, or it could be a chocolate bar or a sweetie for the kids, whatever it is you want to do, but just make it fun, because there's no doubt when your learning becomes playful, when it's fun, that is when the peak of learning actually happens. When things are a chore, when it's a difficult task that is boring, the learning just drops off a cliff. But if you can make it engaging and fun, and I see this in my lessons when I do this, how much fun people have playing these games. We do it on the green at June's where we pick up beanbags for each zone. And what I want you to do, so have a starting point, and you're just going to send the ball down there. So let's say I'm going to go for that last zone at the end there and just take a look at it. And I let that distance just absorb into my mind, and then I just send the ball down there. So it's gone a little bit too far, so I can learn from that. But this time, instead of going to the same zone, I'm going to pick a different one. I'm going to go to the near one. Try this one. So there we go, it's in the zone. So I'm not going to spend ages playing this game. That's just something that you can easily set up and do at home. Make it fun, make it a challenge for yourself or amongst your household members. The next thing I want you to then do for distance control is I want you to focus in on something small. So what I've got here is a 5, well, it's not actually a 5p coin, I thought it was. It's actually 10, what is it? No idea what this is anyway. It's like a 5p coin, you can see. And I'm going to place this down on the carpet. So it's very, very small. Now, the smaller you can make your focus, the better. Because when you go out on the golf course, if you've been practicing this for a little while at home, you're going to get out on the golf course and that hole is going to look massive compared to this 5p. So what we're looking at here is how close to the 5p can I get it? Again, you can gamify this with yourself or with your family. So not too bad. Then what you would do out on the golf course is you'd probably imagine this 5p is somewhere towards the back of the hole, or even say 10, 12 inches beyond the hole, so that you're giving the putt a chance to go in. The smaller you can make your focus, the better, the more focused your mind is going to be on the task. Some of the tasks or tips I'm going to give you here when it comes to pace control and just letting your subconscious mind do the job. The problem you see a lot of people is the conscious mind takes over. As I said at the beginning of this, they overthink it. They're trying to look for things that aren't there. Very often I find your initial look when you look at a putt is probably the best one that you're going to get. I would liken it to, my granddad used to be a twitcher, so he used to go like bird watching, and when he'd give me the binoculars and I'd look through it, I'd get a good focus on whatever we were looking at. But if I tried to make it even better, that's when I'd seem to lose it. And I'd often struggle to get back to that good picture that I had at the beginning. So when I'm on the greens, very often I will go with my first instinct. That's when I hit my best putts, when I just take a look at it. As I'm walking up to the green, I can see the line, I can see the pace of the putt, not by being sharp focus. It's almost like a soft focus where I'm just letting the green, letting the shape of the green, the textures on the green, therefore the speed just be digested into my mind. And now I'm just going to see where that 5p is. And I want you to hit some putts just looking at the 5p. Ooh, that was a close one. Yeah, so you're not looking at the actual ball. You're just going to look at the target. Focus in and just look at the target. And you can see how accurate this is when we're doing it this way. Most people feel they've got to look at the ball. I think it was Jordan Spieth a number of years ago on short putts. Was it 10 foot and in? He was doing the same thing. He's putting, looking at the hole itself. So back to the main part of this first session, which is pace control. I've talked a lot there about the mindset, and I think you've got to be in this mindset where you're looking at the task much more than you are the mechanics of it. However, I see a lot of people when they really struggle with pace control, even if they're in a good mindset, it's because they're using the muscles and the wrist here, and it looks a bit like this. We get a wristy sort of action. The putting stroke, without doubt for me, comes more from my back muscles. Now we must be very clear here. This doesn't mean that we lock the wrists onto the club. I find I have people who mistakenly interpret what I say, or rather, my fault for not communicating this part strongly enough, which is, look, we hold the club, we don't grip it. I don't want my wrist to be tight and locked because then I lose all feel. Back to throwing the ball again. If I throw the ball, and as I throw it, I'm gripping really tightly. If I've got tension in my wrists, in my forearms, in my shoulders, I lose the feel. That feel that's vital for getting this ball to go the distance we want it to go. So I hold the club in my hands, hold being the operative word. I then make a stroke and you'll see how passive my wrists are. There's none of this business going on. It's a movement, and I want you to feel this, guys. If you're practicing this at home, I want you to sense that the movement is coming from the back muscles. They're the leading muscles in this action, not through the wrists here. The back muscles, they're big, they're powerful, they're not twitchy, they're not prone to sudden jerks of movement. I can control the whole setup, this whole unit, much more easily if I feel like I'm using my back muscles. However, this now presents a little bit of a problem, because if we're going to go putting and we're thinking intently about the movement of our body, we are probably taking away that focus from the task. So this is something you can practice at home. You go to a stage of practice where I would call it block practice. So you're going to work on your technique. So this time, I wouldn't put to a target here. I would put to nothing. So in this case, just this wall here. And I'm really going to focus on, by the way, I hold the putter like this, more on this later. You can hold it however you want for now. But remember, I am just holding the club, and I'm going to feel like my back muscles are doing the work. And I'm not putting to anything, so it doesn't matter how hard it goes. I'm just getting a feeling for the difference between, say, going like this, a wristy action, and one where I feel my wrists are really passive and doing this. One of the ways that you can test this is you can set up a ball between your wrist and the grip of the club here, and if you start to use the wrist, the ball drops out like so. Please remember, and I keep repeating this though, when I see people deliberately trying to take the wrist action out, they start to grip it, and the sensation is that they're going to lock the wrists in place. And for sure, when I'm doing this, there's no wrist action there, but the tension, I can't even feel the weight in the club head. I have no feel for the put. So whilst it might look good on camera when I'm doing this, in practice, in the real thing on the golf course, my distance judgment has gone. Okay, I just can't feel the pace of the put. So remember, light grip pressure, just hold the club. So what else have we got on pace control? Let me just have a quick look at my notes in case I've missed anything out there. Yeah. Another thing we can do actually, guys, bit of fun here for you as well, is when we're hitting these putts, perhaps, let's say I go to the wall, Billy, you might be able to see it a bit better here, sideways on. I want you to take your setup, and then just before you hit the putt, I want you to close your eyes. So you're going to hit the putt with your eyes closed, and I want you to guess how far you've hit it. Now the purpose of this is to just help you to correlate in your mind's eye the length of not the length of a swing, but the feeling you've got for your swing versus how far that sends the ball. So it'll be something like this, and I'm going to have a guess about where it's finished. Now I think that just about reached the wall. Right, there we go, right up against it. Did it hit the wall, Billy?
I think so.
You think so? Okay, I didn't hear it, but it gives you a bit of a feeling, and of course you might have times where you open your eyes and you think you've got it 2 feet from the wall, but when you open them it's 4 feet from the wall. You can start to use that feedback to then build up your skills to know how hard to hit it for the different distances that you see in your mind's eye. So that's a good one. Putting with your eyes closed. On a putting green, it's even better. I would put to a hole or to my 5p, even better. Just remember, putting to the 5p, fantastic exercise at home on the carpet, because when you get back out on the golf course, that hole is going to look bigger than it's ever looked before, and that's no bad thing, I can tell you. Billy, can I have a quick time check, please?
1/4 past.
1/4 past, brilliant. Right, it's time to move on to part 2. I hope, folks, there's been 1 or 2 things there in that first part that you found useful. Please do comment if you have any questions at all, and I will endeavour to answer as many questions as I can. moving on to part 2. Now this, I find, is probably for the lower handicap golfers. Not exclusively, I'm aware, but for the yips, which is what I described at the start of this video. Just to clarify for those that don't know, because I know I teach a lot of people who are new to the game, they might not have ever heard of the yips, and you might want to stop watching now in case I put some seeds in your mind that you don't want. But for those that do know, what a yip is, it often happens on short putts. It often happens with low handicap golfers, and it's kind of an involuntary action. It's almost like I'm putting to hole it at the end of this knife I've put down here, and as I go to put it, something comes over me where there's like a twitch, an involuntary action, and I just can't hold the putt. It's like, it's a horrible, a scary thing as well when you're golfing and you've done all the hard work to get the ball near the hole. I'll tell you a quick story for me. There was times where I'd hit a good shot on a par 3 to about this distance, let's say 3 feet, something like that, and you're walking up and your pals are like, oh, you're going to be in for a 2 here, and we're playing birdie bits where you get an extra 50p for a birdie. Your playing partner, if you're playing match play, is like, oh, well, you're as good as a 2 there. And in my mind, I'm thinking, crikey, he hasn't seen me putt recently. And as you get up, you can just feel it coming on sometimes. Sometimes it happens mid-stroke, but as you're coming back, it's like a hook, and there's a twitch. I know some of you watching this might be, what on earth is he on about? But trust me, if you've suffered from that, you will know exactly what I'm on about and how soul-destroying it is to struggle to hold a putt from such short distance. And this is something that I suffered with for a number of years, and I've also been through it and know what I had to do to come out the other side and to be able to be much more confident on these putts. And there's a few processes that are involved. There is no one quick fix, although there is one top tip that I got off Dave Peltz at the golf show. Dave Peltz, if you don't know, is a putting guru. I had the pleasure to meet him a number of years ago, and he said anyone who's suffering from the yips, the number one thing you can do is change how you hold the club. And his tip, and I've run with it and I've shared this with many people over the years, is to go from the conventional grip where the right hand is below the left, and instead it's called the claw, and it looks like this. Your right hand thumb sits underneath like so, and your index finger sits on the top, and it's almost a bit like a paintbrush action with the right hand. That to me is the number one way, the simple way that you can still enjoy putting without having to do too much changes in your mindset, although it does come from a mindset. It's about just taking that right hand out of it, using the claw grip, and it looks something like this, look. Okay, so the claw grip is the number one. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the mindset. Now, I was led to believe, common psychology would suggest that when you've got a putt of any length, let's say a 4-foot putt for a birdie, the best psychology would be to be off the wall positive. What would off the wall positive be? What would be a statement you would say to yourself, Billy? The most positive thing you could be over a putt. What are you going to say to yourself? You don't know. Of course you know. You're just too shy to say. It is, of course, I will hold this putt. There is no doubt in my mind that I will hold this putt. Now, I'm going to ask you all a question. Have you ever missed a putt from 3 or 4 feet? Have you ever missed a putt, Billy?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you have. We all have, and we all will in the future. But the problem is when the fear of missing becomes so great that is the most dominant thought that we have. And I tried this for a while, folks. I tried on putts of 3 and 4 feet, or any putt, saying to myself, I will hold this. But do you know what the problem with that statement is? It's a big fat lie. And you know it is. You know it's a lie. So it doesn't help us. In fact, for many of my pupils, when I go through this process with them who are struggling with their putting, especially on those short putts, it comes as a great surprise to them when I say the mindset of I will hold a putt, the off-the-wall positive, is little to no better than the negative of, oh, I won't hold this, I'm rubbish at putting. Your mind deals best with the truth, and a neutral mindset allows us to get to that truth. But how do we get to a neutral mindset? What I do is when I set up to a putt of any length, I ask myself one simple question. Is it possible for me to hold this putt? And the answer to that is always a resounding big fat yes. Yes, it is possible. I'm not saying I will and lying to myself. I'm not saying I won't, because by saying I won't hold the putt is also a lie. I kind of had this thing when I used to play pool in the pub, and if I had the black in the middle of the table and I'm trying to knock it into the bottom left corner, the number of times that white ball would go in off. Why would it go in off? It would go in off because it was possible it could go in off. Well, it's the same when I'm sending this white ball down to this pocket in the green. It's possible that I could hold the putt. I'm not saying I will, because that's a lie. So, again, I'm going to give you another quick story that's going to help your putting when you get back to it on the golf course. And this comes from a very, very good friend, one of my best friends, in fact, a lad called Simon Boddy. Now, Simon and I grew up playing golf together at Scarborough Northcliffe Golf Club, and Simon is one of the best putters I have ever played with. And I'm sure he won't mind saying that his technique is not absolutely perfect. He might disagree with that, actually, but it isn't. It's a little bit unorthodox, but it's very, very effective. And one day we was at Hainsworth Park Golf Club, which is where I was a club pro for nearly 10 years, and I hadn't long been there. And Simon came for a game with me. Now, bear in mind, we grew up playing a lot of golf together, and he was always a better putter than I was by, if I'm honest, some stretch. And what happened on the first hole at Hainsworth Park has stood with me for a long time. I hit a good drive down the fairway. Simon put it in the trees left, and he's left-handed, by the way, and he's hacked it out of the trees onto the front of the green. He's about 30 feet away, and he stands up. Oh, by the way, I've then knocked my pitch to about 10 feet. He's 30 feet away. Of course, left-hander, boom. He rattles it in, which didn't surprise me, because when we played as juniors, he always seemed to have this knack of holing, putt after putt after putt, especially against me. And of course, what did I say? I just, with dismay, I went up to my 10-footer, and instead of the mindset thinking I've got this for the win, I now had it for the half. And I missed, and as I walked off the green, I said to him, Simon, I have no idea what you think about to hold so many putts every time you play against me. To which he turned, without any thought, straight off the cuff, what else is there to think about other than holding it? And I thought about that for a second. As we were going up to the second tee, which is a little walk, I thought, you know what? I don't think about holding long putts, if I'm really honest with myself. If I'm really brutally honest with myself, on long putts, I don't try to hole it in one. I don't even try to hole it in two putts, although that's what I'd be happy with. The truth is, I was trying not to three putt. That would be my dominant thought on a long putt. Two putts is good, just don't three putt this. And when I think about that, I'm really setting myself up for failure. Yeah? It wasn't a case of trying to hole it in one. I'm trying not to have an accident. It's a bit like me getting in the car, driving from here in Rosehearty to Fraserburgh, and my dominant thought being, please don't crash the car into the sea on the road. Please don't hit the roundabout. Yeah, these negative thoughts. And it's amazingly powerful what our thoughts do to our physiology, how we feel. Yeah, your thoughts can invoke almost any feeling you want. Music can create a thought that makes you feel. We could be having a pretty down day. Suddenly a tune that brings back memories of the 90s for me, and going out with my mates makes me feel really good just because of a tune, because it evokes a thought. So we do have to be careful what we think. So back to this. I promise you, of all the things I've shared with you today so far, if you go back out on the golf course and you play with the thought on every putt, your intention is to hole it, it will transform your game. And this, by the way, does not mean that I'm asking you to go out and you ram every putt and send it 10 feet past, because in actual fact, hitting a putt like that doesn't cause it to go in the hole anyway. If you go out and you think, well, I'm going to see this ball just cascade over the hole, the lip of the hole, and into the hole at a nice pace, and you put with intention to hole it on your 2-foot putts, on your 6-foot putts, on your 50-foot putts, your intention is to hole it, you will find that whilst you won't go out and hole every 50-footer, and you might think back to this live broadcast and say, well, Pete said, if I thought about holding it, then I would. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, if you go out with your intention to hole it, you will find that you miss by far less. the number of instances that the ball does go in the hole shoots up massively. And you'll find that your average number of putts per round comes down significantly because you have a much clearer focus, which is why we go back to the value of the putting to the 5p piece. Lots of studies have shown if we make our training more difficult than what we would then perform in the competitive environment, if that's what you're doing, then that serves you well. That's why they train runners and cyclists to altitude, where the oxygen is thinner, it gets their body stronger. It's why Sir Alex Ferguson was famous for making his Manchester United teams train in environments that were much tougher than they would ever see on the pitch. So much evidence out there to show how making the task more difficult in practice when you're training serves you when you're actually competing in competition. So, just a quick recap today. I'm going to just go through the things. What time are we on, please, Billy?
26 past.
26, okay, we only got a few minutes. Just a quick recap then. Going back to the games. Make your learning fun. Gamify it. Play with the family. Have it something where distance control. Going back to the ladder game, in my junior lessons, my beginner lessons, the transformation in their ability to get the distance is amplified 100-fold just through the gamification of it. You have the skills you need to do this already. You don't need lots of technique on this. However, if there was a little bit of technique, it's to use the back muscles for putting, not the wrists, okay? We have the ball here that can help you just to feel that the wrists stay passive and you're using the back. If we use the wrist, the ball drops out, look. Then we talked a bit about the mindset, putting to the 5p, putting to hole, putting with your eyes closed, how these things can help you to build up an awareness. Then we have the grip, if you struggle with the yips, the claw grip here. Again, going back to the mindset for yipping the putts, it's often, or it is, a pressure, a self-imposed pressure where failure is the dominant thought. Crashing the car is the dominant thought. Instead, we change that with, is it possible? That simple statement. And ask yourself that. If ever you feel yourself getting nervous over any shot, doesn't have to be a putt, does it? Could be your first tee shot, when our day of freedom comes, and you're on that tee, possibly alone, but there might be a queue of people at socially acceptable distances as it is, watching you, and you're like, oh, I hope I don't miss it. What happens if I slice it out of bounds or put it on the road? Just remind yourself that simple question. Actually, all those things that could happen are true. They could all happen, but does it mean it will happen? And then just ask yourself, just before you're about to swing, is it possible I could hit that fairway? And the truth, of course, is, of course it is. Does it guarantee it? Of course it doesn't. But that's what makes this game so much fun.